Welcome to the Badass Soul Seeking Warrior podcast. I am your host, Annie M. Fonte. If you are looking to create a life that you love, you're in the right spot. Let's get started. Hello, all of you Badass Soul Seeking Warrior podcast listeners. I am very fortunate to be able to share with you today a very special young woman. Her name is Tessa Terry, and I can't wait to tell you more about her. But first, I would like all of you to join Tessa and I and give ourselves permission just to slow down a bit. So I want us to all take a big, deep breath in and then exhale and settle into good listening position and good conversation position. I think sometimes we have to give ourselves a few moments to slough off some of the things that have been going on all day. And I like to take the opportunity to do that with those big, deep breaths in. So, as I said, I'm really excited to share with you Tessa today. And I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about her here. When she was 8 years old, she started a baking business. And she personally called every single radio station, flower shop, insurance company, hair salon, real estate agent, everybody in town that she could find to sell her homemade desserts to. And even at 8 years old, she was a budding entrepreneur. She came up with a slogan for her company, and it was called "Never a Crummy Cookie," which I love. How creative for an 8-year-old. She graduated from high school at 14 years old. And then she joined in and helped her parents, who started a Victorian lampshade company in their business. And their lamps have been in Paris hotels, New York City restaurants, and even Disney World shops. And for those of you who are familiar with the Disney Haunted Mansion, that's where you will find lampshades that Tessa made her very self. And that's kind of where she started with using some of her creativity. She got married at 19 years old, and at 23 years old, she and her husband bought their first home in South Carolina. It was an old home. It was built in 1960s, and it needed a total renovation. So they took it to the walls and gutted the entire thing from floor to ceiling. And this is where Tessa started to learn a lot about the technical aspects of redoing homes, and which then went on to, in 2021, Tessa purchased her first RV, and she renovated that, and took about 4 months. We're going to talk more about that, but she ended up selling that, and that's when her business took off. And her company is called Alchemy RV Renovations. And so we're going to talk a lot about that today. We're going to talk about creating a life you love, which I know you've done, Tessa. And so welcome. Thanks for coming on today, and I look forward to our chat.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Good. So let me start here. How did you graduate from high school at 14 years old? Were you homeschooled? How does one do that?
I was, yeah. I was an overachiever as a kid. I also was homeschooled, but for high school, I did a private school online thing. So it was homeschool, but the curriculum was based from an actual school in California. The cool thing about that was that I could do as many lessons as I wanted to, and uh, I I actually started high school when I was between 12 and 13, and then I set my own schedule for it. So I was waking up at 6 in the morning and going to bed at 10 p.m. and I was doing school. I mean, 5 days a week, all day. And my mom was like, "You need to chill with it. You know, you can take your time." And I was like, "No, no, no, I want to do this." So it was just a lot of dedication and hard work. I knew that I wanted to graduate at 14. I had always wanted to do that, so I made it happen.
Interesting. How did you know so young that you wanted to graduate at such a young age?
So at the time, I really wanted to get my first job at 14 for whatever reason. I was set on waitressing. And the reason I was set on waitressing was because in Arkansas, which is where I was at the time, where I was raised, you can get a job at 14. And
Okay.
I just wanted to do it as early as possible. And so my mom said I wasn't allowed to get a job outside unless I was graduated. And from there, 14 became the number.
That was your motivation for sure.
That was my motivation. Yeah.
Tell me, how did that work socially? Because you weren't going to school each day and hanging out with friends and going from class to class and all those kinds of things. So how did you interact with other kids?
So I grew up in a very religious household, and we were really involved with that. And so I actually grew up with a ton of kids. We were extremely social. My mom's an identical twin, and so I have cousins who grew up like my brothers. And really, I look back at my childhood and I compare it to like even my husband's and stuff like that who did go to public school, and I was just around kids and people in general quite a bit. I was very social as a young kid, so.
Okay, good. Um,
Yeah,
and then what did you do? So did you go to become a waitress at 14? You fulfilled that goal of yours? Is that what you
I
did?
did. I did. I called up a tea room and I told her I was 14 and she laughed at me and said, no, thanks. And I said, could I please just come in for an interview and then you can tell me no to my face? And she goes, okay. And I came in a couple days later, and it so happened the day I came in, her cook was sick and her waitress was sick, or something had happened. So she was short staffed and she met me. And I came up dressed really nice and as professional as I can be. And she was really impressed, hired me on the spot. And I worked there until the day that business actually closed down. I'm still friends with the owner. She was the sweetest woman ever. And it worked out perfectly. But it was definitely a lot of effort because at first it was a big no. Um, and I made it happen eventually. So,
I always say when someone says no to me, they just don't understand the question yet. So
right.
leave it to you, right?
Yeah, I was like, let's meet in person so I
Yes.
can I can get through there. Yeah, yeah, it
And
worked out.
why waitressing? Why was that something you wanted to do?
I don't know. I really can't tell you why. It was actually funny because as a little kid, people would be like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I was like, "A waitress." No idea why. My parents would be like, "Well, can you think of something like a little bit more impressive than a waitress?" I was like, "Nope, I wanted to do that." I was just a very, I set goals and I was really focused on getting them done. And then I guess that's kind of how I operate now, even in a way.
Yeah.
It's funny how we look back and we see how our personalities are kind of formed young.
Right.
Um, but again, it was because, I can get hired early and I was just really wanting to achieve goals as quickly as I could at the time. So,
And was part of that you wanted to start making your own money, or did that have anything to do with it at all?
oh yeah, I did because that's why I started the business at 8 too with the cookies. It was, I loved making my own money and I loved earning it and putting in the work and, so definitely that was part of it
That's
for
great.
sure.
And so you worked at the restaurant until it closed, and then you became a barista at Starbucks, correct? After that?
I did. I actually started at Panera, but there was a point in my life where um, I started at Panera when I was 16 and I worked at Starbucks too. So I opened stores for them. I was a trainer and I did that for collectively 5 or 6 years. And, I did that for a really long time and it was a really good thing for me at the time. But I was working 80-hour weeks and
Wow.
as a teenager back when I had more energy and, that was life. So
And so tell
yeah.
me how in some of the research I did, I listened to one of the conversations you had with someone else, and you said that
Hmm.
you told them that you got married at 19, but you didn't ever think that that was something you wanted to do. How did you meet your husband, and how did
Oh
you
yeah.
find?
Oh man, I did not want to get married. All my friends were had weddings planned and wedding dresses picked out, and I was like, no, I'm good. I walked into a bookstore when I was 16 years old, and I saw this guy working there, and I was with my cousin at the time, and I literally said, I'm gonna marry him one day. I was just like in love with him. I've never seen anybody that I thought that about before in my life. And a couple years went by. I was going into the bookstore a lot. We saw each other, and then he eventually talked to me and asked me if he could make dinner for me, and we have been together ever since. So that was right when I was about to be 18. So we've been together for some time now, but married for almost 11 years.
And you had that feeling before you even spoke words to one another that this is the guy I'm going to marry?
Oh yeah, so much so that I didn't know his name for a year and a half. He wore plaid shirts a lot, and so every one of my friends called him Plaid, and they would make jokes about me and him. Didn't know who he was, didn't know anything about him. It was really funny that it worked out as amazing as it has, but it was, yeah, it was funny.
And in conversation that we had the other day prior to this podcast, you told me that you're like simpatico. You work really well together. You communicate well together. It's as if it's just meant to be.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm really grateful for that. I mean, I think that's why I've been able to achieve as much as I have, just because of how much we support each other's dreams. I mean, there is no time for breaking each other down. So fighting and arguments just don't have time for it. We're so focused on what we want in life, and we're just so focused on supporting each other and nurturing each other. And I feel like that also spreads to your kids, when you have a good marriage, the kids feel that too, and it just, domino effect. So I'm really grateful for that, and we really talk to each other almost every day about how grateful we are for that. And I feel like that keeps it at the forefront for us.
And it sounds like you have a lot of communication and a lot of conversation about what your vision is for your family and your future and the
Yeah,
business you've now created. I also know,
absolutely. Every day.
yeah, that he was working when you first got married, and you had this desire to buy a home together. And then once after 2021, after you found success doing this RV renovation, he was then able and wanted to leave his work and became a stay-at-home dad. And does he do the lion's share? I know you homeschool your own children. Does he do the lion's share of that? Do you share in that? How does that work?
He does. He does the homeschooling. He takes care of Uh, let me tell you, I do about a load of laundry every 6 months. He does the everything. He does the cleaning and the cooking and the really all the hard work. And I mean, we both share that as much as we need to. So we know if one's not feeling good, one needs help, the other one's right there to help, which makes us feel really secure in everything that we do. And that's nice. But he enjoys doing all that, and he's great at it. So
It sounds like you love doing what you do, and he loves doing the part he
yeah,
plays in that role. And so it works, which is unusual,
yeah,
especially to be so
yeah.
young and to have those really deep and compelling conversations about what you want your life to look like and how you want it to unfold and sit down and make goals together. It seems unusual that at that age you had the wherewithal to have those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why we're not usually the type of people who are like, oh, it's meant to be. But really looking back at us in particular, I can't see any other way other than it's just meant to be. Because really, we did get married so young, and it was so much could have gone wrong and could have gone bad, but it just has worked out really well. So I'm grateful for that for sure.
So you purchase your first home in 2020, or I'm sorry, when you're 23 years old, and you do this
Yeah.
renovation on it. And was that something, were you looking for a home to renovate, or is that something you wanted to do? Were you looking to be kind of a buy homes, turn them around type person? What motivated you to buy a
Uh,
1960s home and redo the whole thing?
the main motivation was we were young and didn't have money. So, the budget that we had I mean, the budget we had was not a fully finished, $1 million house by any means. So that, but also I grew up with my parents buying homes that they always fixed up. So my parents had literally never bought a brand new build where we just moved in. I wasn't even like really thinking that would ever be a thing I would do. Design is part of me, and I do that anyway. So getting one that we found just so happened to be in our price range, and I saw potential with it, and we were lucky to get it at that point. Honestly, just because you're young with a new baby and trying to make it. So that's why we got that one.
And when you were young, did you participate in helping your parents fix up the homes that you redid? So
Oh
you kind
yeah, 100%.
you had
Yeah.
learned a little bit of the craft when you were young and growing up.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And then my dad is really inventive and really good at uh, everything. And so he taught me a lot as a kid too. And I watched extra, I'd say, more than the average kid, especially when it comes to like renovations and stuff like that.
And did you and your husband do the lion's share of the work on your home when you redid it?
Yeah. Yeah. I can't think, man, I think we hired, I'm pretty sure we hired a contractor to do drywalling, and that should be about it in the whole house. We did
Wow,
everything. Yeah.
incredible.
It was a big job. And it wasn't quick either. I mean, it took us, it took us a good chunk of time too, but we also moved across country to South Carolina when our baby was 2 months old. So we had at newborn, I was literally like nursing, and we were figuring out how to be parents and then also doing this renovation. So it was a lot.
Why did you choose to move at that point in time?
Well, we knew we wanted to move out of Arkansas. We had never planned on staying there, but my parents moved to South Carolina about 6 months before we got married,
Okay,
and we're really close to them. So also we went to Charleston on our honeymoon and fell in love. So that was a big part of it too.
good for you. Okay, so 2021 rolls around and you were looking on Facebook Marketplace and you ran across this
Yeah.
RV and take the story from there. What happened?
Yeah. Man, so I founded a camper on Marketplace. It was $6,000. My grandparents had a camper, but I knew nothing about them. And for some reason, I decided to look it up because there was like 30 comments of people saying they wanted it. Tons of people. So I thought, man, this must be a good price, you know? I looked it up, it was a great price. And for whatever reason, I was like, I'll take it. And for whatever reason, they messaged me and said, come look at it. And we did. And I thought, worst case scenario, I'll buy it. It'll be a creative outlet. I'll, get to do my vision on it and see how it comes out. Really zero expectations of a business whatsoever. I got it, and 6 months later, I had it finished. Between 4 and 6 months later, I had it finished, and it sold within 4 hours with a long line of buyers behind it, and I knew I had something.
Good for you. So,
Yeah.
because you didn't have a lot of knowledge about RVs back when you found this online,
Right.
what did
Right.
you find out in your research and looking through the comments? What was so interesting about this particular RV to people? Sounds like there was a lot of people that were having conversation around it.
Yeah, it was well priced, but it was just a really pretty layout. It was not too big. I think it was 32 feet. But it just had a great layout. But I mean, it was nothing to look at by any means before. Like when I got it, I did a total gut job on it. So the way I looked at it was in square footage, and I think, there are penthouses in New York City that are 500 square feet and
Yeah.
millions of dollars. Why can't we, translate that into these RVs? And so that was my attempt when I bought it. That's what I wanted to attempt.
So you said that when you were young, you would walk into a space, whether it's a home or a restaurant or a hotel room, probably, and in your mind you would redesign these spaces. Where did
Yeah.
that come from? I mean, was that just
I
something
tr
innate, or you just had these visions at such a young age?
Yeah, at a really young age, I remember being 4 years old and wanting to wallpaper my bedroom, like the bedroom that we had in the house so much. I loved wallpaper. I loved going through fabric shops. My mom went there all the time because of the lampshade business, and I loved going through fabrics. I loved putting things together. Really, that has just been a part of me, and I don't know where it came from because it's been there as long as I could remember. But that has been my joy is designing and creating and making things beautiful.
So when you go in 2021 and you go find this first RV, this $6,000 RV that you found on Facebook Marketplace, when you walked in, did your mind kind of explode into a vision of what this finished RV would look like?
Yeah, for sure on that one. I had all my colors picked out within a few seconds in my head. I just had to make it happen. I guess the hard thing about the RV compared to homes is you can't use huge lighting fixtures. You can't use, thick flooring like you would in a home. So of course there is tweaks that I'd have to do, but in general, I saw that within a few seconds of walking in.
Wow. And so you purchase this and you take it to, I'm guessing, your home, your yard
Yeah.
or somewhere. And I'm
Yep.
guessing one of the first things one probably does is the demo work, because a lot of
Yep.
what exists probably wasn't up to your satisfaction.
Yeah. Everything had to
So
go.
talk to us about that process. How does that work?
Yeah, so that's the first thing I do with every RV. I rip out all my flooring. I rip out all the furniture, all the lighting fixtures. Usually I try to offer it to people who are needing it and see if, we
Yeah,
can
sure.
take them if they're in good condition. It's not like I throw them out, but they go. And then I start prepping for things. And throughout this whole process, I'm also well, now it's a lot different than it was when it started. But on the first camper, I was taking forever on it and doing, I was learning the process. I had no process. So the demo took me several weeks and I was figuring out how to pull out things. And yeah, and then I started designing it after that in detail.
And so you became the um, demo person, you became the plumber, you became the electrician. And
Yeah.
like you said, different from homes because RVs generally, not always, I think these days a lot of folks are using them for tiny homes or Airbnbs or some type of, I've seen some people gut out trailers and make coffee shops out of them, or
Yeah.
hair salons. People are getting really creative, but
Yeah.
generally they have to be moved from place to place. And so you can't put heavy granite countertops in them and heavy furniture and heavy flooring and all those kinds of things because it just adds to the weight of being pulled
Yeah.
around, especially if one's going to use them for traveling. So, how did you learn all this? Did you watch YouTube videos? Did you just, you know,
Uh,
ex
experiment both. I mean, YouTube's great. I definitely had to experiment. The first one that I did, so actually when I started this as a business, I thought the majority of people would be using them as kind of tiny homes, like what everything you just mentioned. And the majority of my buyers actually travel full time with them. Every single one that I design is made for travel. Um, the very, very first one that I did, um, it was a learning process. She actually did use it as like a mother-in-law's quarters, and she lived on her daughter and her husband's land and stayed there. Um, but yeah, the weight thing is top priority for me. But usually when I'm done with the renovation, they're actually lighter than they are originally because I'm very aware of that, and that's important. So it's a lot of time that goes into it, and really months of design work, and a lot of focus on a lot of different things to make them work.
Well, I don't know. Probably to you it sounds like a lot of time, but for me and probably a lot of our listeners, completely redoing an RV in 4 months to 6 months sounds like it was a pretty speedy process, especially when you were having to learn all the things
Yeah,
you learned the first time around. And is this something?
yeah. I mean, now it's much, much quicker.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And is this your work? Is this
Yeah.
something you work on your designs and these renovations 8 hours a day, longer? How does that work?
Um, I don't, yeah, I think with all business owners, you'll know that you work more than you'd probably like to. I mean, this is, I'm kind of working 24/7, but at the same time, like with this renovation tour that I'm on right now, when I'm working, a lot of times my kids are in there with me and my husband's helping me now, because they're at the age where they can stay entertained on their own and they can help out in their own little ways. And, it's nice. My top priority is buying myself time, quality time with my kids and enjoying life. So everything revolves around that. But as far as design process, I have multiple things going at all times. So yeah, it does take up a lot of time. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna act like I'm done working at 11 a.m. But it's I try to keep it as organized as possible.
So the first one was a success. You buy this RV and you redo it and you sell it within 24 hours. You had a whole list of people. How did you decide on the buyer? You have all these people interested. How did you decide who you wanted to sell it to?
They were the first people who messaged me and decided to come look at it. And I kind of did. I wasn't known for this at all. So I didn't have an Instagram. like I do now, and I didn't have a website. I just sold it on Facebook Marketplace, and I just try to do it in the order that people message me. They messaged me immediately, and they came out, man, within a couple hours. So, yeah, I mean, and also at the time when they messaged me, I didn't think I was going to have a list of people, other people messaging me either. That was all a surprise. So, but they also turned out to be some of the best people ever. And I remember when they came to see it, they walked through it, and the mom said, I'd like to make you an offer, and I'd like to make you the offer of everything you're asking and nothing less, because this is the most beautiful camper we've ever seen, and I'd like to give you everything that you're asking. And I was surprised by that. And it was a really nice way to start this business for
Good
sure.
for you. And so then had up until that point, did you, before the sale of your first project, did you start looking for other RVs, or were you saying, let's see how this goes before I jump full with both feet into this? How did that timing go?
That the timing, I definitely wasn't looking before I sold it, although I mean I sold it pretty quickly, but the profit that I made on it was great. And my husband was working, commuting an hour each day back and forth, and he was working 10-hour days. And we never wanted that kind of life. We never wanted the 9 to 5, we'll take vacations when we retire type of life. And so we just had to figure out how to make that work. We didn't know, and this seemed like a really good opportunity, and it was something that I was really passionate about too. So it was definitely taking a leap, with him quitting his job, but I've always been, really confident in my decisions, and I try not to look at things as failure or scary, and just go for it. And it did work out great.
Well, I've always heard, and I believe in my own experience in life, is the magic is lies where we're most uncomfortable.
For
If
sure.
we have the courage to let go of the edge of the pool, learn
Yep.
to swim, that's where the thing you're going to learn a lot. You're going to meet a lot of new people that way. You're going to have
Yeah.
much richer and deep experiences that way. So it sounds like you were willing to take those risks and be uncomfortable, learning new things. You hadn't done this before, taking a shot at something that you weren't sure was going to go, work out, but it did.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, and my husband and I say that to each other. I promise you, every single day, at some point, we remind each other how much growth there is in the uncomfortability, and we're so excited for things to be scary to us because we look at it like that, and I think that's how we've been able to get this far, honestly. So I love that mindset.
Yeah, that's great because you certainly have to have that mindset of possibility and not doubt.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be as successful as you've been. So you go on and you say, okay, this looks like this is something not only do I enjoy doing it, it allows my husband to come and get off this crazy like soul-sucking journey he was on with a job that he had to drive an
Yeah.
hour each way back and forth, very little time to spend with your little one at that point in time. So you go out and search
Yeah.
for other RVs at that point. Is that how it progressed from there?
Yeah, it did. And it's all a learning process now. Man, the way I look for RVs now and the things I do is so much different from back then. But yeah, I got my first fifth wheel, and then I also started doing some custom jobs, and that was a process too. But yeah, that's where I honestly from the whole time I've been getting them off Facebook Marketplace. Usually, that's the best way for me to find ones to rent out.
Well, and
So
you live in an area where there are more abundant supply of them than other parts of the country because there's a lot of folks there that travel with RVs.
yeah,
So it has
yeah.
you have kind of a little bit of a better supply chain there than you would if you lived in the middle of Oklahoma or something like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, West Coast is really good too, even more than here, but we have a lot. There's no shortage of RVers here. So,
So from 2021, when you bought your first one, and until the end of 2024, and we'll talk about this in a second, but in January of 2025, you went on the road to start doing these mini renovations, I understand. But
yeah,
between 2021 and the end of 2024, how many projects did you do?
over 10, but over 10 complete renovations and then several custom jobs. I don't actually remember the exact number, but once I hit 10, I stopped counting.
Yeah,
But yeah, fifth wheels, campers, like big stuff, bigger ones. So
that's a lot for that period of
it
time.
is. Yeah.
And let's talk about, I'm guessing, but you tell me, I'm guessing it's easier for you to go out and get your own RV and you do all of it, design work and then sell it versus custom jobs because I think if I was doing custom, now this is just me, you're much more advanced than I would be probably with this, but if I didn't care for someone's taste, it would be really hard for me to want to do that job. Or if they wanted to paint
Oh, for
something
sure.
purple with the green polka dots, I'd say, can't do it. How do you pick your customers?
I'm really upfront about that. I don't do take on jobs where the client has a completely different look than what my style is, because to me, staying true as a designer is really important, and that's how I do my best work. And I only want to put my best work out there. Early on, it wasn't like I had hundreds of clients lined up for me by any means. I was wanting as much business as I could. So I've taken a client before where I had to do their own style, and I listened to 100% of what she said, and I had very little input. And that was the first custom job I ever did. And I learned that that's not for me. And that was, really draining just in a creative way. And because I'm not just a contractor, it is for the design sake that I'm doing this. So, you learn as you go. And I'm glad I had that experience because it taught me a ton. But right now, I stick with people who really respect my designs and kind of already know what they can expect from me.
And when you walk into a trailer you're going to buy, or you walk into a potential custom trailer project, do you go off on a feeling, an emotion? How do you kind of get your arms around what you visualize for these spaces?
Yeah, I do. There's definitely been a few spaces where I've walked into and I don't have anything popping up for it. I don't have motivation. And I don't lie about that. I just, I really don't work on those projects because again, I want to put out my best work. Um, but that happens less times than not. And I definitely get to know the client really well. I make sure that we're a good fit. And because of that, I've been able to work with really some of the coolest people ever, and it makes you walk away from that situation as a designer inspired by them, and you get more motivation. And that's really important to me too, because I don't want to be drained while I'm
Right.
doing this. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I get to know the client, the space have to feel good. It kind of, all the puzzle pieces fall together every time. It always works out good, and you just have to trust your gut with it.
Yeah, and I'm guessing probably the layout has a lot to do with it, whether it feels like something you could open up or you could use your design style to incorporate into the particular layout. Because RVs do have different layouts, I'm guessing, as far as their floor plan
Oh
goes.
yeah. Yeah, layout's super important to me. I try to get layouts that feel as open as possible for the space. I love working with big windows, natural light, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
of the projects you've done so far, ones that you've designed purchased and designed from the get-go, and including the custom projects you've done, do you have a favorite?
Um, the Cedar Creek fifth wheel that I did, which was my own, not a custom job, that was a 40-foot fifth wheel, and it was huge and it was stunning. Actually, I'm sitting in my parents' kitchen right now, and they picked their cabinet color based on that one, because I did the kitchen in the Cedar Creek in the same color. And it was just so peaceful. That one was like walking into a magazine, and it was, I loved that one. I did black LVP flooring, and we had the green kitchen, and it was just like amazing. That was my favorite, probably.
So for all you listeners out there, I'm going to put Tessa's website in the show notes for you. I guarantee you, I, I can guarantee you, you're going to go to her website and you're going to look at these renovations she's done, and they are jaw-dropping. They are beautiful. So do yourself a favor, jump on her website, and then I'm also going to include Tessa's social media, most active on Instagram, I know, but I think working on maybe upgrading your Facebook presence as well. Follow her on Instagram. It is amazing the things that she does, and she talks to you about her some of the even the plumbing challenges, and she talks to you about actually what this is like for her. So please do yourself a favor, go have a look at these spaces she's recreated. It is amazing. So tell me about that, Ari, your favorite project. Was that used as a travel trailer, or was that used in a different capacity for these folks?
The people that bought that one, I think they traveled with it slightly, but I think it was not full-time travel. It was mainly like a living space that they moved every, couple of several months. So,
Yeah.
but that one was also designed to travel too, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. Um, let's talk a little bit about what you want to do next. Do you want to grow your company? Do you want to keep it at the same size because it's manageable? What are you thinking about as far as what the next, 2, 3, 5 years look like for you?
Yeah, so I'm really in the middle of scaling my company right now. I want to open it up to lots of employees, but the hard thing about it for me, um, is not the hard thing, but when it comes to hiring other people, my quality of work is very important to me. And just to find people who put in that same amount of effort into the quality is really important. I also want to expand the business into opening the first ever luxury RV design brand. And so to turn that into an online store where people can actually go shopping and get beautiful residential like fixtures, and I hand sew all my curtains and all my window treatments. So to have like custom things available to the public there would be really something that's in the works for the next year. But yeah, definitely lots of scaling. I grew this company into a six-figure company as is, and I'd just like to go much, much bigger and better in the next couple of years for sure.
And we'll get back to that, but and I'm sorry to jump around so much
Okay.
with you here, but I want to go back to kind of the big reveal, if you will, when you and I think that which leads me into talking about what you've done this year of 2025, where you've gone on the road and you've actually done these mini renovations for people. I saw on your Instagram. You guys have to go watch this. It's terrific. You recently redid a horse trailer for a gal,
Yeah.
and you show when she first sees it, and her friends also, that was the first time they saw it from what it was when you got your hands on it to what you turned it into. And I almost started to cry. It was
I know.
so touching. Tell me about how people react when they see what you've done for their tiny spaces.
Oh, that's the best part to me. So my whole theory with design is it motivates you to be who you are. And when you create a space and people walk into it and they feel like you mirrored who they've become and they just saw it, and now this is something that they can live in or travel in, that's beyond words to me. I mean, that is why I do it, because it motivates people to be their best selves. And that was really cool because the lady, my client up in Bend, Oregon, with the horse trailer, she was amazing. And we're friends forever now. I absolutely love her, but she was the one who invited all her friends over and family, and it was like a little party. It was so much fun. I normally don't get to do that, so that was an extremely exciting situation for me too, and I'm glad I got some on film too. It was just a great day. Everyone's face, as you can see in that video, was like
They're stunned.
pure shock. Yeah, yeah, it was
It's
super cool.
great. I loved it because she's walking her horse and somebody says, move that horse. And then she walks
Yeah.
to this place. And it's so feminine and beautiful. And what I loved about it, to be honest with you, because you guys have to go look at this horse trailer. It's amazing. You used real muted tones, but pinks and light greens and whatnot, and then this beautiful pink runner down from the bed area through the kitchen. And when she walked in the trailer, she had this bright pink top on, and it just felt like this was just meant to be for this woman. It was just
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, she was dressed perfectly for it. She had pink shoes and everything. It was perfect. That's much brighter than anything else I've ever done before. Um, I loved it. I had so much fun with that space. It was just and so many details that it was one of those spaces that when I was done with it, if you said what's your favorite part, it's like I don't know. It all flows together perfectly.
No,
I love it. She loved it too.
it was great. Okay, so let's talk about this. What do you call it? I call it a road show because you're on the road now and you're doing these mini renovations with people, and they can last anywhere from several days to a couple of weeks, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah.
Why did you decide to do that, number one? And how did you come up with where you wanted to travel and who you wanted to do their projects for them?
So when I first announced it, it was back around September, October of last year. And my husband and I wanted to travel. We wanted to move. We wanted to sell our house. We felt just in our gut that it was time to move forward. Again, growth in uncomfortable situations. We knew that we were getting a little too comfortable where we were, and we just wanted to grow. So I announced the tour. Honestly, I was expecting, a handful of people who said, "Yeah, come here," and I would go to them and do my thing. Instead, I got hundreds and hundreds of applicants. So many so that I couldn't message everybody back. I couldn't even keep up. These people were filling out application forms with all their details. Some of the stories that they had were so moving and so cool. It was just a lot, big response. So we decided to sell our house right then and there because we didn't know we would sell it right then. We thought maybe we'd keep it as a home base, travel, come back. But we thought, no, we want to dive in this, and so we sold our house and hit the road. As far as deciding where to go, again, getting to know the client, seeing the space. Really, a lot of this is just trusting my gut when
Sure.
it comes to picking it out. Yeah.
And so, did you start in a certain region, and do you have kind of a plan? Because you're doing this throughout this year, is that correct?
Probably into I'm almost certain, which I haven't said this online, but I'm pretty sure it'll be all next year too because of the amount of responses I've got to this. But yes, for sure throughout this year. I don't RVs, so I have a business interior background and home background. So I actually did a motel. I did a waterfront lakefront motel in North Carolina. That was my first stop, which was, more local. And then we went to Oregon from there. We just got back from Oregon, actually. So,
And so you've sold your home. So you have the clothes on your
yeah.
back, and a few things that you take with you. You do have your own RV? Do you stay in our Airbnbs? How do you coordinate all that?
So we have a house in North Carolina, which is where our permanent address is, and we have all our stuff there.
Okay.
But we're traveling full time. Like, we're actually we just bought land and we're building a house in North Carolina too. But I haven't really talked about that because that's kind of a side task. You're doing a lot when building a house is a side task. But
Your
anyway,
own home
so
becomes a low priority.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, could this be content? I don't know. Just forget it. But anyway, yeah, so we have a home base, but we do stay in really nice Airbnbs. That's something really personal to me. I think that my kids traveling this much, I really want them to feel grounded and never feel like they're living out of a suitcase. I didn't want to travel in an RV where it's a really small space, 24/7 for them because they're kids and this is their childhood and I want them to have space. So, when we stayed in Oregon, we got to stay in this 4-story Airbnb that was beautiful and lots of space for the kids. So, we make sure that we're staying in nice places on the road. But it's also cool because we get all different kinds of landscapes, and that's an experience for them in itself.
And do you drive to these locations and then drive back home? How does that work?
Uh, I'd say I'd cut it in half. So if it's halfway across the United States, we'll probably drive to something like that. For Oregon, we flew because we stayed over there for 2 whole months. We lived in Eugene, Oregon for a month and Bend, Oregon for a month. So yeah, we flew for that. But it just depends. If we're on the East Coast, we'll definitely drive. We are seasoned drivers for sure. We do that a lot. So yeah.
Now, I know you're not gutting these and demoing them down to the floors and the cabinets and all those kinds of things, but how do you fly your tools with you? I'm sure you need a certain amount of tools to do some of these mini renovations. How's that work?
Yeah, For sure. So that's also in the middle of a learning process right now because we've never toured the United States before. So when we went to Oregon, what I did is I rebought all the tools that I needed, the basics, and really focused on what I'm going to need for each project. And I shipped those back home. And now I have a very specific list of tools that I need every time. And so if we do fly again, that will get shipped in a box and be there for my next location. But yeah, this was a definitely a trial with Oregon because that's the farthest we've ever been. We went to Washington too, and we just rebought a lot of tools, and we're fine tuning that process.
So you're back in the Carolinas now,
Yep.
and you're going back out. Where are you going next?
So we're taking a break right now because I have been working since January nonstop, and we're actually leaving tomorrow morning to go to Disney for the next 2 weeks. We're taking a little break, and then I'm going to re-go through my applications and decide where to go. Initially, when I started this tour, I wanted to plan out my whole year, but I realized there's so many new applicants coming in at all times. I'm gonna take out a couple months at a time and then revisit, regroup, and go from there. So we're looking at going to the West Coast again in Arizona this winter. I have a yacht renovation to do up in Cape Cod, so we might head there soon. I have a lot of clients in Texas. So once we get back from this trip, I'll be refining that and seeing where we're going next.
How fun. I just love it.
Yep.
You're so brave. And
Thank
you
you.
have created a beautiful relationship with your family where they strap on their courage capes too and go right along with you. And I think
Yeah.
it's great that you have the flexibility with the kids because they're being homeschooled. And what a great learning experience for them to travel to different parts of the country and meet different people and see different landscaping and, live in different homes and those kinds of things. That's terrific.
Yeah, it's a great learning experience for them. My husband always says, he wants the kids to see big things, bigger than ourselves. And we do that philosophy in life is that it keeps you humble and it keeps you appreciative. And then all of a sudden, when someone pulls out in front of you, it's not that big of a deal because you've seen such big things and you have an appreciation for things like that.
Now,
Yeah.
you act as you're everything. You're the technician, so you do the work, including plumbing, electricity, all those kinds of things. I wouldn't mind doing a lot of things, but electricity is not my thing. I've never loved being shocked by things, so I kind of shy away from that. But so you're
So
doing
far, I'm not dead, but
so you're doing all that, and you're doing the design part, and you're running a business. You have to, do bookkeeping and banking and create P&Ls and balance sheets and all
social
this,
media.
so,
Yeah.
the social media. Do you have a favorite part of those hats you wear? Is there one you'd like to wear all the time or more often than not and kind of let somebody else wear another hat?
I think this is kind of an odd part to say because it's not like really a specific part, but there's always a part where you've primed everything and it's prepped and it looks kind of almost at its worst. And then you start adding in it's like right before it's finished. I love when you're doing the painting the big walls and getting like the big pieces of furniture and everything just starts coming together. That's like one of my favorite parts. I also love taking pictures afterwards because I do all my own photography and stuff, and I love seeing the before and after. I guess just the culmination of everything coming together is really fun. I love the whole designing process. I actually, out of all the renovations, I probably like doing electric the most. That's actually like fun to me. I don't know. There's so many parts of it I love, but I think that's why I thrive in this too, because there's very little that I don't like about it.
Yeah, well, you can tell. You can tell by the work you do. And I think I was listening to another podcast that you did with somebody, and you were saying, and I'm like this too when I'm doing things. You're not so good at the before and after pictures. Although your website has beautiful shots of your after project, and I've noticed on your Instagram you do have more before and afters, but I'm like that too. I said, I'm gonna go, cut that shrub down today. And instead of taking a before picture to just kind of show me what I accomplished, I just cut it down and then I think, oh, I should have taken a before shot of this. So,
Right.
um, Social media is hard though. I don't know about you, but it's, if you post it, even to be able to post once a day, every day and do videos and reels and all the things, that's a lot. Could be a full-time job.
It could be, and I joke that I need to find like a teenager who's really good at it to hire because it's definitely not my usual cup of tea. I've had to learn a lot, and if you go to my Instagram, people say it looks good. It's not my cup of tea. So I'm always trying to improve it. But yeah, I actually think that the social media aspect of it is probably my least favorite out of everything I do. I like hearing back from people and I like talking to people, but the actual curating it and putting it together is a little bit draining for me. It's just not my usual thing. But now with every single business and social media existing, that just kind of becomes part of you got to. So,
Well, and let me tell you what I love about yours and a lot of the folks that I follow. This is what I look for with them
mhm,
is it's so authentic. It's just you
yeah,
being you, which I really appreciate because oftentimes these, I don't know what we call them these days, influencers, they're
hmm
more about, you know, dressing it up with fake news than being authentically who they are. And what I really enjoy about especially your Instagram, is that you're just being you and you're just sharing
yeah.
the genuineness of who you are during the day and during your projects. And I really do like that a lot.
Well, thank you. I That means a lot to me because I've gotten things like ChatGPT and stuff to help me just kind of automate it. And what I've found is that anytime I'm like, "Hey, can you help me write a caption? Can you help me do this?" I never use it. It is so fake sounding. It's so commercial, and I just can't jump on that train, even though it would make things a lot easier. It's more important to me to stay authentic with it. I don't want to look at a Instagram that looks like not me. So I appreciate you saying that. It definitely takes more work.
Well, and I think your people find you.
Yeah.
It feels to me, more recently than in the past, that people are fatiguing a little bit of inauthenticity, and they're really looking to embrace the realness that people express or show of themselves instead of trying to keep up with the Joneses and comparing themselves to whomever on social media and those kinds of things. So I think you've done a remarkable job of that for sure. So
Thank you.
we're looking at potentially adding more to your team. And does that look like that'll happen sooner than later? Or are you going to wait to get off the road? What are you thinking as far as that goes?
Yeah, we might do some behind the scenes testing with, some hiring some help on. I have some ideas behind the scenes. Not something that I'm going to outwardly advertise. Like I can take on more projects now. I
Yeah.
want to, get a few done and see what the logistics of that would look like and fine tune it before it really expands and goes big. But I would love to have that in motion by 2026 and, get that going. So,
And you told me the other day, Tessa, that you and your husband have had a vision and you're kind of putting the wheels in motion on potentially spending, good chunks of time in the south of France.
yeah, yeah, that has been our goal for years now. And that's kind of why we're doing everything that we're doing. That's the big reason why we wanted to sell our house. Um, we have, like I said, are starting to build a small house here in North Carolina, but that's something that we can easily use as a home base and something very modest and small compared to what we would normally want as a full-time house. And that is because we would love to get over to France. So that's another puzzle piece in our story, and we're really excited about that. Lots of planning involved for sure.
Yeah, and do you have a kind of a goal as to where you'd like to have that happen?
Well, we love Dordogne, the region of Dordogne. That's what we've been looking at for years. But we're going to go over there, maybe even this year if we have time. But we want to spend a couple months over and really look at the whole area, not just France. We'll go to Italy and other places in Europe and see what really hits us. And I think going over there with the mindset of living over there full time will definitely be helpful to us when looking. So we're just open to it and we're excited, but we know that that is the end goal here. So
And when you say living there full time, do you mean several months at a time, or eventually you'd like to spend the majority of your time there?
We'd love to live there full time. I know that initially, having young kids and getting visas and how that looks, is going to be a long process. So we're not planning on making it happen anytime in the immediate future. But we would love right now to own property over there and Airbnb it out half the time and then live over there, several months a year. So we'll just see what that looks like in the future. But first step is getting a little house over there and making that work. So
And that sounds so perfect for you because I don't know that much about design, but your style is so romantic and I don't know how to describe it. You listeners, like I said, go to the website and take a look. It's fresh, it's romantic, it has a certain flow to it. Is this something you would want to do in France or Italy or wherever you end up living to continue your design offerings in those
yeah,
environments?
so I'll never stop designing. That's for sure what I want to do. Now the RVs, I don't know how that'll look in 20 years down the line, but with designing, that is just who I am and it's in my heart. I would love to do that. I am so inspired by European designs of
Yeah,
all kinds.
I can tell.
Architecture and colors and landscape. It's all that's what I get inspired by. So I would love to carry that in whatever form over there too. That would be awesome.
You're an old soul. In a past life, you were doing this stuff, I think.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. It would make sense.
That's why at 4 you could
It
walk
feels
into
right.
a room and go, I would move this around. I'd change
Yeah,
the sleep ride.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, obviously you do what you love for the most part every day. And we all as business owners and just humans, we all have our bad days or bad moments of days. When you have those things pop up for you, what do you do to change your frequency to get back to higher levels of operating?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I keep bringing up my husband, but he is such a grounding force in my life, and we are that for each other. But I think I look at it like this: when you're around negative people, that rubs off on you. And so, being around people who are uplifting, not people who look at your dreams and ideas and go like, "Well, good luck." That kind of energy to me, you can't thrive in ever. And so I'm really cautious of who I spend my time around, and I love regrounding myself by being around good people like that. But I also do things like I try to meditate. Um, I try to work out and do things, but not in a extremist way and not in a superficial way, but in just the way to take care of my body because it's taking care of me kind of thing. And so yeah, I think I'm also really introverted, and sitting with my husband and talking and refreshing, I can come to him and tell him exactly how I'm feeling, and we just do that for each other. And by the time that's over, we feel more motivated and regrounded.
I'm glad you have each other. It sounds beautiful to me.
Thank you. I am too.
So, for the folks that are listening who are wanting to potentially pursue some level of entrepreneurship, what would some of your advice be as far as being an entrepreneur and considering starting a company and some of the first steps or the important things you've learned in starting, in 2021. Prior to that, actually, you were 8 years old when you started your baking company, but what have you learned over the years that are things to highly consider or put on your checklist if one wants to become an entrepreneur?
Well, I'll say this. One thing I do notice, and one thing I've done in my life too, I think if you come up with something you're really passionate about, work quietly on it for a while. Really good at your craft. If your bigger concern is making a logo more than providing a quality product, it's probably not going to work out long term. Um, and so be comfortable with what you're doing. That's one thing that I've done too. I didn't want to hire contractors and hire employees before I personally knew how to do everything.
Mhm.
That was really important to me. So don't be scared of it. I am such if people come to me with a business idea and they're passionate about it, I want to encourage them as much as I can, because I think your heart knows what to do, and if you're passionate about it, you follow it. But really, just, it's not about bragging, it's not about becoming famous on social media. Just start with focusing on the task at hand and your craft, and getting good at it.
Well, it sounds to me too, and you've expressed this during our conversation today, is you have to give yourself permission to give yourself grace and be patient with yourself, because these things don't, most successful businesses don't happen overnight. And if they do, it's kind of a flash in the pan type situation. So you give
Yeah.
yourself permission to make mistakes and go slow and get things right and do the research, and to not expect that you're going to be, quote, an overnight success. I've often told people that it only took me 15 years to be an overnight success. It does take time, and you do
Right.
have to be persistent,
Yeah.
dedicated, and disciplined, and all the things.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're doing it for the ego part
Yeah.
of it, if you're doing it for compliments and you're waiting for people to do that, the dangerous thing about that is that when somebody, and it will happen, says, I hate what you're doing, it's terrible, because that's how the internet works, that's going to hurt you and that's
Right.
going to hinder you. So if you're operating and vibrating at that level of business, it's not going to be a success. You have to get past that. And that's why I talk about passion so much. That's so much more important than getting good reviews and getting, viral reels or whatever it is.
hmm And what would you say for yourself have been, I don't know, the top two, three, if there's more, I'd love to hear them, things that you've done for yourself to create a life you love so much? Because I can tell you do. You've really created this special existence for yourself and your family. What's
Oh, well,
what have been the
thank you.
keystones to having been able to do that for you?
Mm. I think for me, um, I had to accept where I came from. So I grew up, like we barely touched on, a very religious background, but too much so. It was borderline cult, and it was very strict. And I had, life has ups and downs, and my lowest point was when I was working 80 hours a week. And I was kind of on my own. And this was before I met my husband, before I started any business. And I think that when you get to a point in life where you truly are happy with what you've created, you don't look back at the past with resentment. You look back at it with gratefulness, because you see its necessity, and you just start appreciating things. You don't look at the negativity of things. You don't say, I wish that didn't happen, I wish I could change that. You accept it and you thank it. And the more gratitude you have in life, that's where manifestation comes, and that's where good stuff comes. And it's everything's a snowball effect. You just have to snowball the right way. So really appreciating where I came from, all of it, good and bad, has been a big thing for me.
Yeah, and I think it's easy, and especially these days, it seems to be easier than when I was growing up, and you're much younger than I am, but people seem to be more willing and wanting to take on the victim role
Yeah.
instead of looking at one of my lines in the sand, if you will, is view every experience as a gift. And that's what you just talked about. Your upbringing in this almost cult-like religious environment could be viewed as very uh, in a very victim way, or a reason to restrain you and keep you from going out and doing the things you've done. But you chose to take that and be grateful for it and thank you, because it taught you certain things, and it helped you
Yeah.
evolve into the person you are today. And so I appreciate that, and I hope our listeners will really absorb that too. As one of the, you've said so many good things today, but one of the more important things that you've said today is to view all of these experiences and all the, quote, bumps in the road as necessary parts of the journey, because they
Yeah.
are. And our mindset
Absolutely.
has so much to do with, we have so much control over our inner world, and it really allows us to be masters of our external experience if we choose to, matriculate through life like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more with that.
If you were I know you're very busy, but if you had a couple of hours and could sneak away to a cozy corner and a space that you've created and read a good book, do you have a book or two that you would recommend that we all read if we had a chance?
Well, you might guess this because my business is called Alchemy or Renovations,
Yeah.
but The Alchemist is my favorite book of
Yeah.
all times, and I've probably read it 20 different times. I read it in print, but then I listen to it on audiobooks. I just love every bit. If you have not read that book,
I
that's the
have.
one I would recommend. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's so much to get out of it, but what are the key things that you got out of it and why do you keep going back to it?
Oh man, I feel like they say this about books because you grow, so every time you read it, it's like a different book.
Yeah.
There's so many like whoa morsels of deep truth in that book. It's hard to put your finger on it. Um, but you just can't sit and sulk and wish things were different. You have to do it, and you can. Everything's possible, and everything works out. I love in that book how it talks about being aware of omens and like seeing things as signs, and taking that with a grain of salt. But like it, I don't know. It's just motivating, just to really just go for it. I mean, it in simplistic terms. You
Yeah.
can't be afraid.
I often remind myself when I think I'm having a bad day, I stop and I've gotten really good at being aware of, okay, Annie, you've gotten yourself whipped into this funk. It's your responsibility to be aware of that and get yourself whipped right back out of it. And so the first thing I think about is there are people in many parts of the world
Mhm.
that would give anything to have what my bad day seems to be showing up for me as, whether
Yeah,
it's a flat tire or some inconvenience, heavy traffic, whatever it is. And so I think it's often important for us to gain a perspective about this rich and just life full of possibilities that we have in our country, number one, but in the generations that we've grown up in, and regardless of, I think a lot of people can look to their childhood for some traumatic events or situations they've gone through, but to choose to learn from it instead of being the victim. So, but just to be aware enough to remind ourselves that all I have to do in those moments, Tessa, I don't know about you, it sounds like you and your husband have these rituals you go through, but is to immediately sit down. And if I don't have a pen and paper, I'll just sit down in my own mind and say, name me three things you're grateful for right now. And that takes
yeah,
seconds. And it really does
yeah,
help me kind of switch my mindset and get myself back in order and into a
for
better
sure.
attitude.
Yeah, I mean, we all spiral, and like I said before, you snowball in a good way or a bad way. And yeah, I think positivity is the key, and not it's not fake positivity. You really become appreciative, truly, for
Mhm.
things. You start seeing things that you wouldn't see if you choose to be negative, and
Yeah.
it only makes life better.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you are
Yeah,
beautiful from the inside out, and you're a beautiful woman on the outside, and even more so on the inside.
thank you,
Before we leave
thank
today, is
you.
there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners that you think would be valuable to them? Like I say, all you guys listening, I am going to put the link to the website for Tessa's website. It's alchemyrvrenovations.com as well as her Instagram link. And I want you all to go spend some time there because you will be inspired for sure. But is there anything else that you would like to share with us today, Tessa?
Oh man, just keep in touch with me and follow me because right now it's such a season of growth for me and I'm learning through this process. Again, I really focus on being authentic on my page. And so anybody who comes there and has anything to add, I always appreciate and I'm glad to have them.
Great. Well, thanks so much. I
Yeah,
really enjoyed this chat today. I've learned so much
me
from you.
too.
Even the other day when we talked before this podcast, I have to share this with the audience. I got off the Zoom call with you and I felt so inspired. I felt like I wanted to
Oh.
go build something or plant something or do something. Oh, so
Perfect.
you're
That's what
very
I want.
motivating, and I appreciate you spending the time with us today and sharing your experience and some of your background and some of the things that have made your life so great for you and your attitude about that. And I know the listeners got a lot from it as well. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone, you go out there and as always, have a kick-ass rest of the day. Keep your ass in the saddle, and I will talk to you all really soon. Take good care. Bye-bye.